Hey everyone, let's talk about how I feel about Bitcoin right now. The short take is the price, meh. Everything else, fabulously great. Which is why, in investing, you've got to be able to focus on things other than price. So every single one of the highest performing assets in the world, let's call them the Magnificent Seven stocks, which is Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, Nvidia, Tesla, and there may be one or two others in there I'm forgetting. Every one of those went through periods where, as a company, everything but the stock price was going amazingly well. And the best time to buy any of those assets were when everything else was going amazing except the stock price, because it meant that the stock price did not reflect the underlying fundamentals of the business. So in the case of Bitcoin, it's not a business. You don't want your money to be a business. In fact, the more it acts like a business, like the Federal Reserve, where their job is to print money out of thin air and therefore devalue the money in your pocket, that's not what you want. You want something that nobody can do that to. So what are the fundamentals of a good money? It is attributes like divisibility, durability, fungibility, verifiability, scarcity, which is the most important one, as well as, authenticatability, and there's a variety of others. There's usually between 5 and 8 characteristics of a ideal money, depending on sort of which researcher you talk to. So Bitcoin is a rock star in all of those. The security of the Bitcoin network is the highest it's ever been. The decentralization of the network is amazing. The fees on the network are, very low right now. You can transact on the Bitcoin network any amount of money for a very, very low fee of less than 25 cents, which literally you can move $1 billion right now anywhere in the world for like 25 cents, which is incredible. So everything about the fundamentals that make Bitcoin amazing are the strongest they've ever been. So what's not the strongest it's ever been is the price of a Bitcoin. Well, why is that? Well, because on top of the fundamental adoption, the core adoption of people who actually need Bitcoin, value Bitcoin, and understand Bitcoin, you have a bunch of speculators on top of that, which is the case in every single market. In every single market, including every one of those stocks that I mentioned, you have the true believers, the people who are reading the quarterly reports, that are following blow by blow every single thing that is happening with that asset. You have those people. And those people are going to hold on to that asset class absolutely no matter what. If you talk to somebody who is super into Tesla or Amazon or Nvidia, they're not selling that stock no matter what. They have an incredibly high conviction, which means the price is not going up and down based on them, because they are ride or die holders of that stock. Or in the case of Bitcoin, there is a huge cohort, tens of millions, even hundreds of millions, that are ride or die Bitcoiners. They believe in Bitcoin, they understand Bitcoin, they value Bitcoin, and they understand that the future monetary system of the world is Bitcoin. Those people are not selling and buying Bitcoin on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, or even yearly basis. They are only selling Bitcoin when they have to buy something to make the lives of themselves and their families better. And they're buying more Bitcoin every opportunity they get. That is how that works. So as a result, you get the ride or die crowd that owns any asset, and then you get a bunch of speculators on top of that who only bought the asset because it was going up, and then as soon as it starts going down, they sell the asset. So that's what's happening in the world of Bitcoin right now. The fundamental value of Bitcoin has not gone down. It has only gone up, which means the price, which is about $82,000 per coin right now, is only suppressed because the speculators and the people who are not real, the tourists, the fakers and the phonies, everybody who had no idea what Bitcoin was, but they saw that it was the best performing asset last year, and they wanted a piece of that performance, and they bought some, and then some group of them spooked by all these tariffs and whatever else, and now they're, the rats fleeing the ship is the way they feel. The truth is they don't understand that, they're headed for ice water, right? And the ship is not sinking. So anyway, that is where we are. And so Bitcoin's on sale. So the way I feel about everything right now is I'll go item by item. the fundamentals of Bitcoin: divisibility, durability, portability, fungibility, scarcity, authenticatability, all of the fundamental elements of Bitcoin as a money, I feel fantastic about. It's really as good as it could possibly be. There's just no way to improve it without breaking something or making it so good and so private that criminals would use it. And right now, Bitcoin is as private as it can possibly be without being a good tool for criminals. And it is as cheap to transact on the Bitcoin network as possible without being so cheap that there's too little incentive to mine Bitcoin, which is the way that the network secures itself. So you combine it, and it's like, if somebody asked me to change something about Bitcoin right now, I would not change anything about Bitcoin right now. Again, other than the price. But the price really, in the long term, is a function of adoption. In the short term, it's a function of speculation on top of adoption. But in the long term, the price is reflective of actual adoption. Because over time, the percentage of true adopters, real adopters, true believers, the ride or die types, the percentage of those people that are the holders of Bitcoin gets higher and higher and higher with time. And therefore, the percentage of holders that are speculating and are pure speculators, and don't know what they hold and are basically emotionally driven, that percentage goes down as a percentage of the whole over time. So on all of the fundamentals, I feel fantastic about Bitcoin. On the price, I feel meh. It's annoying that the price is only $82,000 a coin. Obviously, that's a massive blessing for everybody who is desperately trying to stack as much Bitcoin as they possibly can at cheap prices. So good for you, good for them. Cheap prices benefit everyone who is not already loaded to the gills on Bitcoin. And for somebody like me who is already above 99% of my liquid assets in Bitcoin, literally 99% of any assets that I control that I could invest in Bitcoin are already invested in Bitcoin. Obviously, that's a bit frustrating because I'm like, dang, where's some more US dollars I could use to buy more Bitcoin? And the answer is, when you're above 99%, it's really hard to find any additional dollars to put in Bitcoin. And that includes 100% of my 401k, 100% of my IRA, 100% of anything that could be put in Bitcoin on the retirement side is in Bitcoin, and which leaves the only part that's not in Bitcoin, about 1% of my liquid assets, that's basically in non-Bitcoin stuff in case Bitcoin dips and I don't want to sell Bitcoin at a discount. So it's in other stuff, mostly Tesla. Most of what's not, the less than 1% that is not in Bitcoin is mostly in Tesla, which I would argue is, objectively a worse investment, but it does give me 1% diversification, which feels like it's at least somewhat responsible for somebody who's got tuition payments coming up for my wife and my daughter. My wife in grad school, my daughter who starts college in the fall. So I've got a little bit of a non-Bitcoin reserve in case Bitcoin dips on the exact day that I'm supposed to be making a tuition payment. I'll at least have the opportunity to pull that from somewhere else. But I do feel like this is a movie where I've seen the end. I feel like I'm in a theater with a bunch of people. They're all afraid that this movie is going to end with the beloved main character not making it. And I'm sitting there having seen this movie so many times that I'm like, it's a very happy ending and the good guys win. And, the couple falls in love and the main character lives and all this sort of stuff. But it's like, there's no way I can communicate that to everybody other than like Facebook videos. So everybody who's been in Bitcoin a long time knows that in the end, Bitcoin always wins. But for everybody who's new to Bitcoin, they don't know that yet because this is the first time they've seen the movie. And so price dips like this are scary. They're scary because they haven't seen this movie before. And it makes them nervous and they wonder if they're the last one in. They wonder if Bitcoin recovers this time or if they bought Bitcoin on its very last rally before fading into irrelevance. Well, I can assure you that's not the case. Bitcoin ultimately does win in the end, becomes the future monetary system of the world, and everyone who owns Bitcoin is way better off. That is just how things are going to play out based on the fundamentals of how money works, how the government prints money, and how humans eventually catch on to the fact that it's better to own a money that the government can't print out of thin air than to own a money that the government can print out of thin air. And eventually everybody figures that out. Little by little, worldwide, person by person, they all eventually figure that out. It just takes decades. And we are in that multi-decade process right now. So I feel like I've seen the end of the movie. I feel like, it's a great time to buy Bitcoin, but I also understand that a lot of people who are new to Bitcoin, they don't feel that way because this is their first price dip or maybe their second price dip, and they still just don't have the conviction that people like I do who have been in this a long time and know that it always ends with Bitcoin eventually setting a new all-time high. So if I can be of assistance on your Bitcoin journey, I am always here for anything you need. Feel free to message me. Load up on as much Bitcoin on sale as you possibly can. And if I can answer any questions for you that would help build your knowledge and conviction about Bitcoin, please let me know. Also, I've got a couple super busy weeks coming up here in the world of Prospera and otherwise. So hopefully I'll have a chance to do some videos, but it's going to be a whirlwind for the next couple weeks of professional work and just a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to try to do videos, but I can't make any promises for the next couple weeks because in the ups and downs of the intensity of all the things I got going on, I'm about to hit one of those waves of high intensity again. But I'll still try to put out whatever content I can, but it might be a little light for the next couple weeks. But I'll be right back on top of it as soon as I hit another dip in my own insane too much going on. But if I can be of assistance to you, please let me know. I'm always here to serve. Thanks and have a great night.